In Farsi, there is a line that says, "Mard ta sukhan na gufte bashad, ey bo hunarash na hufte bashad." Until a person opens his tongue, his shortcomings or his strengths are not known. So when I speak, you will know me. He told me to introduce myself. I don't have to really introduce myself. I'm in religious studies. I'm still a student of Islam. I'm still learning every day. There is no end to learning. But here I am to propose to you a very interesting thesis in these 4 sessions that we'll be together. And maybe it will spur your interest for me to come again with another topic: biomedical ethics, end-of-life decisions, organ donation, whatever you like. You just send me an email and I'll prepare myself accordingly. But our thesis is something that is inspired by this particular ayah of the Quran. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that we have sent down the Quran, min al-Qur'an, something from the Quran in which there is healing and compassion for you. I want to explain these 2 things because modern life makes it extremely difficult for us to be compassionate or to be, healed by doing good things. Because we all go through different kinds of situations every day in our lives. There's no one in this room who can say, "I have no problem. I'm fine with this life." No, I think we have lots of issues in the life and we want to learn how to deal with them. And the Quran is going to be presented to you in a very different light. We hear about the Quran, a lot of it that is dealing with ritual, recitation, but tonight and then other nights, we want to look at the Quran as the source of morality, the source of ethics. I want to ask you, what do you understand by morality? Any volunteer? Anybody can tell me? What do you mean when you say, "Oh, I'm following the morality that is taught in the Quran"? What do they mean by it? Does anyone?
The right thing to do.
Yes.
Just as in doing the right
What?
thing. Doing the right thing.
Doing the right thing.
What does it mean to be right?
That's right. Doing the right thing, following the right values, choosing the right path. All of this is part of morality. What is ethics then?
It's a set of the study of what is right.
This is the study of?
What is right.
Yes, what is right also is covered in morality, but ethics is a little different. Does anyone? Yes?
So I think ethics has to do more with principles and morality is more of the application. So let's say you said you would help a friend move out of his apartment, but then your cousin was in the hospital, so you went to see your cousin in the hospital. That's the morally right thing to do, but ethically speaking, you should have gone.
Okay, I like your distinction between the 2, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to understand the way we justify our actions. Whenever you do something, your mother, your father, your friends might ask you, what is the justification for this? Why did you decide to do it? Weren't you wrong about it? In other words, ethics is to know the reason why you want to do something or you want to avoid something. So ethics is more the field of what we call in Arabic and in Persian, akhlaq. You go through the field of akhlaq. That means you are dealing with human character, khulq. Khalq is different, khulq is different. Khalq is your creation, your outward form is khalq, that is creation. Khulq is to do something with you inside. Imam Ghazali would teach us that human beings have external aspect and internal aspect. External aspect is the one in which you form yourself and you show yourself to others and they judge you according to what you look. That's what happens. So you have appearances. But what doesn't appear always is what is in your heart. How you train yourself. So keep that in mind, that morality and ethics are interchangeably used. I use them interchangeably. But what I really mean morality is that you know the moral reasoning behind what you do or what you don't do. So keep that in mind because we'll come back to it. And I want to explain to you a very important distinction between religion and ethics, although they both are together. Religion and ethics are together, but they create different kinds of response in you. So there are three terms that we want to be able to use them very carefully. One is religion. The other is morality. And the third is legality. Now, if you look at the Sharia itself, the source of the Sharia is value system that the Quran teaches. Sharia tells you this is the type of man I want to see. This is the type of woman I want to see. This is the type of family I want to see. This is the type of global citizen I want to see. That's the goal of the Sharia. But Sharia has three aspects to it. There are certain things in Sharia that you do because you want to please nobody but God, Allah. These are all ibadat. All you do, if you pray and then you pray for the sake of your parents, that's no good. You pray lillah. That's why you say qurbatan ilallah. I'm praying qurbatan ilallah. That's your religious action. Your religious action then, let us remember in this class, your religious action is entirely done to please God and none other. The moment you bring somebody else inside, you are doing shirk. You are doing wrong things. You are associating someone with Allah that you should never do. When it is La ilaha means there is no other being but Allah. You first negate and then you affirm. You negate, there are no gods. I don't worship my beauty. I don't worship my body. I don't worship my money. I worship God. When you move your center of worship to something worldly, you lose the benefit of ibadat. The benefit is gone. So let's recognize, you will remember this throughout the class, by the way. Religion teaches us religious action guide. That's what religion does. Religious action guide is based upon correct intention. It's based upon sincere way of approaching Allah, approaching the higher supernatural authority. And that's very important to keep in mind, that RAG, Religious Action Guide, is the one for which no human institutions can punish you. Are you with me? If you miss your prayers, only God has the right to punish you. Let's say you don't fast in the month of Ramadan. Only God takes care of you. So why didn't you do it? I gave you all the health. Why didn't you do the ibadat? Why didn't you fast? Why didn't you go for Hajj once in your lifetime? I didn't ask you a lot to do. So religious action guide, only God is the judge for it. You can never tell another fellow Muslim, say, oh, your prayer is not accepted. What do you mean your prayer is not accepted? Are you God? You can immediately ask a question, are you God? No. Since you are not God, keep quiet. That's not your business. That's God's business. So you should never do takfir, in other words. No. Never tell someone else, you are a kafir. That's a big insult. The Prophet ﷺ used to say, no, you don't insult anyone like that. Because you don't know what is hidden in their heart. Religious action guide then is dealing with the heart. It is your internal existence. Only God knows how to read it. I don't know how to read it. I can read your eyes sometimes, because human eyes are like a book. They can reveal the heart. You can see somebody. Have you seen the mother talking to the child, where were you today? And he says, I was in the library, but the eyes are falling. And mom says, no, you were not in the library. You were somewhere else. Tell me the truth. Looking at the eyes will give you ability to read somebody's mind. Otherwise, the mind is hidden. But let's look at the second category. Moral action guide. We want to understand moral action guide. Moral action guide is that action which is guided by the sense of right and wrong. There is something in you. When you tell a lie, something in you tells you, no, you shouldn't have done it. You should never do it. Or you are hurting someone. You are talking bad about someone, and your mind says, no, don't do it. You are doing ghibat. You are doing, gossiping. Gossiping is not allowed. All those things are, in other words, morality is what I do to you as my sister, what I do to you as my brother, what I do to you as another human being. I'm accountable for the way I treat you. In other words, whereas religion action guide is subjective inside you, moral action guide is objective. Do you understand the difference between the two? If I tell you lies, if you catch me telling you lies, then you catch me, then you can say, this man is immoral. For morality, you can say moral, immoral. For religious, you don't say kufr. Or you are a kafir. No. That's not the right way to approach it. But if I do something wrong, I was on the street and somebody greeted me and I did not even return the greeting, you can say, what an immoral person. Objectively, you are judging me. So, moral action guide is objective guide. You cannot judge the religious action guide. Only God has the right to judge. But moral action guide, you and I, we all judge. If you catch me doing something wrong, you will say, come on, don't do these wrong things. In other words, we really have a very interesting way of learning these values. But let me come to the third category now. So this was Meg. Any question about Reg and Meg? Yes.
I just had a question about morality. Are you proposing that morality is then universal? And in other words, outside the context of religion, a Hindu, Muslim, and atheist, we have a standard set of measurements through which you can say, well, if you didn't greet me back, I call that immoral. Because you use the word objective, then it must have a universal
Of course. It was a very good point that you brought out. Objective also means universal. Universally, you and I know we should not be telling lies. There's no culture in the world that endorses telling lies. I haven't come across. I don't know. There's no culture in the world that says, if somebody is suffering, you laugh. You make fun of them. No. If somebody is suffering, then you must show compassion. So that's a universal language. For example, when I go to United Nations, when they consult me, I said, no, there is a universal language also in religion. Islam would never endorse torturing a child. It will never. If it does, then it's not Islam. Do you see what I'm talking about? But let's say somebody doesn't pray 5 times a day. Well, he's a good human person. You don't judge about his religiosity, but you can judge about his morality, saying that he's a good person.
I'm just curious, what is then the reference point? Is it our consciousness, or is it a collective years of civilization where we have understood as human beings, independent of religion, what is right and wrong?
Another good question. Although I think you are far ahead of me at the moment, yes, because I will come to them. I will come to these very questions that you are asking, but it's important to clarify them as we move along. Human experience is a good teacher. When I was a small boy, I lied 2-3 times. My mother caught me red-handed. And I learned that mom is disturbed when I tell lies. And she knows she can catch me. Nobody can catch me, but she does. You have learned that your experience teaches you that if you do that to hurt someone, then it is objectively going to be, understood by them. So human experience is one source. But the Quran also, let's say, speaks about adala, about justice. And then the Quran says there is distributive justice. If I have $1,000 and I want to give to one poor person, whereas there are 10 poor people, I should distribute it among 10. This is known as distributive justice. I know nothing bad about you. Somebody is asking me, I want to do business with him. What do you say? You will say, I don't know anything about him. Actually, I have no idea. But I would start with believing in him as a good person. So you are already building some kind of confidence and trust. Moral action guide is connected with our objective behavior. How I behave with you, how I treat you as a human being. The Prophet was asked about Islam, what is Islam all about? And the Prophet said, 1/10 of Islam is a religious action guide, 9/10 is moral action guide. So divide religion in 10 parts. 1/10 of that religion is all your ibadat. Your prayer, your fasting, anything that you do for God is 1/10. 9/10 is how I treat you. Islam is saying, Al-asharatu asham lil-mu'amalat. 10 parts are for mu'amala. I call you my sister and then I don't treat you as my sister. I call you my brother, I don't treat you as my brother. All these things become an obstacle for my perfection. Because our search is for perfection. We want to be perfected. And the Quran is going to be our guide. But the Quran alone is not the guide. Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is also with it. Because first Muhammad came and then the Quran came. You must remember this all the time. God in His wisdom wanted to send us an example first, then the theory. We wanted to see the Prophet, and people who saw the Prophet, they fell in love with him. They would not abandon him. They would follow him. Of course, there were some who did not. Some of who were making fun of him. Everything is there. Otherwise, what does tabbat yada abi lahabin wa tabba? What the Quran is talking about? Who is this Abu Lahab? In other words, there are good and bad everywhere. But the Prophet made it clear that 9/10 of religion is mu'amalat. How I treat you, how I go and work. Do I waste my time when somebody is giving me the salary? What do I do? Even if I call a phone, even if I use the phone in the office that's supposed to be only for business, according to Islam, that's wrong. Do you see what happens? I'm working in the office from 9 to 12. I have a part-time job. If I waste my time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, to talk to my mother, to talk to my friend, Islam says, no, you have failed your moral obligation. You might not be legally bound to it, but morally you are wrong. You should not. And the way morality functions is that the more you do immoral acts, the more that screen falls on your eyes and you are not able to see the truth. See what happens? And you don't want to reach a stage whereby you are not able to make a distinction between truth and lies. You want to always be sharp. I don't mean to say you should judge people, no. What I mean to say, you should be able to understand. This is what the Quran says, Rabbi habli hukman. Rabbi habli hukman. Give me the ability to judge carefully. Hukman doesn't mean government. It simply means my ability to judge. And that's what the Quran says. Pray always. Rabbi habli hukman wa alhiqni bis salihin. Make me, aware of the right kind of judgment and include me among the good people. Alhiqni bis salihin. See the way the Quran is approaching. Now, let's come to the third category before I move on. The third category is legality. So we are now learning about legal action guide. I'm a husband who ill-treats his wife, doesn't take care of his wife. I even mistreat her, I abuse her. Then what she can do, she can report me in the court that my husband is a cruel man. He beats me up. He accuses me. All of these things. In other words, that's known as legal action guide. My wife has a resource. She has a resort to the justice system. She goes to the lawyer. She goes to the court and says, my husband is not treating me well. In other words, imagine how carefully the Sharia is working. If you have a problem with a fellow Muslim, let's say I borrowed money from you, I'm not giving it back to you. You keep on reminding me, where is my money? I need it. And I said, no, I don't have it. Oh, did I borrow from you? No, I didn't borrow from you. I'm telling lies, I'm doing injustice to you. What recourse you have? You have a recourse to report me to the court, report me to the legal authorities. That's known as legal action guide. How is it different from this one? Legal action guide has sanctions behind it. If I don't behave well with my wife, the court can say, go to the prison or pay penalty. Take care of your family. All of these things are possible when you go to the court, right? This is known as legal action guide. So in the Sharia we have, if I'm in partnership with you, we open the business together. We wrote the contract that 50% is yours, 50% is mine. Tomorrow you say, no, mine is 70%, yours is 30%. Oh, we have a written document here. So no, I'm not going to follow that. Then I can take you to the court. That is a legal action guide whereby there is a legality involved and I can be punished for what I have done. Legal action guide is different from moral action guide. Now your word conscience. In a moral action guide, what bites you is your conscience. There is something like a court sitting in our mind. And it tells us, you didn't do the right thing. You did a bad thing. This court is biting you. That's your conscience. And Allah has created that. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. That's what the Quran says. We have inspired you. Allah says, we created you, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا. We created you and then we inspired you. What did we inspire you with? Your ability to know the right from the wrong.
I think biologically there are varying degrees of sociopathy and psychopathy in the general population. So I would say some people need perhaps religion more so to keep them in check and the other legality to keep them in check, because it doesn't occur to them naturally. People have lower levels of empathy. In certain societies even supposedly have lower levels of empathy in them because of capitalism, what have you.
Very true, very true. There could be social pressure. We should understand social conditioning of the mind. Sometimes your conscience becomes blind. It's not able to do anything, and the reason is that you are living in a society whereby everyone is cheating, whereby everyone, is immoral in the way they behave, what do you do then? You can say, okay, I'm going to block myself, but you can't really control the influence. It's very hard to do it. That's why we say, the Quran says, choose a friend who understands you, who is like you. If you choose a friend who is going to mislead you, then you will be endangering your own well-being. So, let's look now. Are there any questions about reg, meg, and leg? Is it clear to you? How is it different? Yes.
So is there overlap? Like, let's say you commit a sin that's against yourself. So does that fall into morality or?
If there is a sanction, it is legal. If there is no sanction, but your conscience bites you, then it is moral.
Okay.
Your mother, when you come back home, she expects you to greet her. Although the religion says it is wajib for you to do it, you must do it, it's your fard. And yet you don't do it. What bites you is your conscience later on. There is no penalty for it. For not saying Salaam Alaikum to your mother, there's no penalty. But morally it is wrong because she is your mother. You must do it. Also religiously it might be wrong because it will hurt your inner feelings. Because after all, she's your mother. I'm talking all about mother. And I do understand that there is father's role. But mother is the one who is more compassionate. And in many ways she cares more, than the father does. Father is running businesses, going out, comes back in the evening, might not have the same link that you have with the mother. Any other questions about reg, meg, and leg?
It's not a question, just kind of an observation that within the legal realm, you see the religious, the Sharia coming into direct conflict with the, state law, right? And a lot of times they're not really compatible with each other. And then the dilemma for the Muslim living in, I guess, a place like America is that, okay, which one do we follow? Is the other person also following the same thing? And then it's further complicated when you look at the different mazhabs within Islam. Oh no, I was following the Shafi, I was following this, I was following that. And when it comes to things like marital discord, these things, people can claim anything they want.
That's right, yeah.
So it's kind of a mess.
I do submit that there are problems in identifying, and people might not be truthful enough to be, concerned with identifying the true source of their behavior. But it is there. What we find is that the categories are sometimes, they collapse. You don't know which one is right. But I want to draw your attention that when you talk about Sharia, then you should always ask about whose Sharia are you talking about? Because that means it's either Hanafi, Maliki, Shafi, could be any Sharia that you are following. What we are trying to follow, what we are trying to teach is that our main source of information is the Quran and the way the Quran teaches morality. Does it make sense? So we will fall back on the Quran. We want to see that the Quran is our teacher. But the Quran alone cannot stand on its own. It's with the Prophet. It's with the Sunnah. In other words, the Quran and the Sunnah are guiding us, provided we are open enough to listen to it. Sometimes we don't listen. We are warned, we don't listen. At other times, we pay attention, we listen, and we find our path. So, yes, I don't mean to say there's no conflict. I still remember, that when my son was in the high school, one day he came home and brought his girlfriend. So, Jennifer, the girl, came with him, and I said, who is this person? And he said, she's in my class, and we study together. So I'm still old-fashioned. So I asked him, can't you find another male, or do you sit in group and study, or do you sit only with this lady to study? He told me, Jennifer understands what I'm studying and I understand what she's studying. It does not ring bell in my mind, because Sharia says there has to be some kind of distinction in the way we sit together. I don't mean to say I did not trust my son, but I did not trust his judgment, because I said that you need a third person, fourth person. There in the presence of 3, 4 people, if you are studying with them, fine. But if you two go away and sit in the corner or nobody sees you, then there is a problem, because you never know when things might not work well. Now, this is what I call the conflict between Sharia values. I'm talking about the values, but there's no fatwa about it. The fatwa doesn't say a boy and girl cannot meet. As long as the niyyah is good, as long as the intention is good, you can find that kind of connection. But otherwise, you should be careful, because there's also, the Quran also teaches that there is shaitan. There is, a devil who can mislead you in thinking that this is right for me to do it. So let's conclude this first part here. Then in essence, religious action guide and moral action guide are related. Yes?
I had a quick question on the religious action guide. You had mentioned the term takfir, which comes from kufr, but does that also include, some people will try to do a runaround on that, and they'll be like, oh, that Muslim doesn't have enough aqidah, because they know you're not supposed to go, oh, that Muslim's a kafir. So they're like, oh, their aqidah is lacking. I don't like that Muslim. So, is that also a form of takfir?
It is.
Question another Muslim's aqidah?
That's right. We are told to leave these matters. Ya Rabbi anta alam minni. You know better than I do about this person. Therefore, I'm not saying anything. You know. Help me and help her or help him, In other words, you can do that. I think ultimately you need to develop what we call a sense of precaution. That before you call somebody with names, think about it, that what if somebody called you with those names and told you that you are such a bad person, or you are mushrik, or you are, kafir or something. You wouldn't like it. So why would the other person like that, So in other words, what we are taught is that do not do to others what you don't want others to do to you. Hasib nafsak qabla tuhasib ghayrak. You must first call yourself to accounting, then call others to account. But you know how fuzul we are. We always talk about others. We don't talk about us, as if we are all gold, all, nice people. But we always like to criticize others. In other words, what the Quran is discouraging us to do is that before you look for imperfections in others, look for imperfections in yourself. Imam Ghazali, in his teaching about the perfection and about how to build good relationship, he says, whenever you are angry with someone, try to see the good things in that someone, and you will see that your anger dissolves. Nobody is perfect, but what you're doing is that you are training yourself to move towards recognizing your own problems first. And that's the source of shifa. So here you find that the ayah that I read is very interestingly telling us that وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ. It is a healing and rahmah for those who believe. So the Quran already puts its goal, its objective in front of us, says this is what you are supposed to be doing. That the Quran is saying that I have come to heal you. I have come to give you shafa. I have come to lead you towards perfection. And I'm coming, your perfection will be attained only when you are able to show compassion. Subhanallah. Compassion. Rahmah. Yes.
Sorry, I don't mean to be ridiculous with this question, but I know that you allow for a certain amount of intellectual freedom.
Always you allowed for a lot of freedom. Yeah. You can disturb me anytime. I'm not disturbed, yes.
there's very clear incentive for the human behavior when it comes to morality and legality, right? So if I lie to you,
Did you say it's very clear?
Incentives for the human behavior as it relates to morality and legality. For example, if I cheat, if I steal, I'll go to prison. If I keep lying to people, they will distrust me and I won't have a lot of friends.
Yes.
Therefore, there's very clear incentives. What is the incentive for me to have religion?
The incentive, that's a very good question. The incentive for you to have religion is to have a source of inner peace.
Because you cannot get peace with morality.
Iman means a sense of security. Human beings want to feel secure. I want to feel secure when I'm moving in the society that, nobody will harm me because I'm under the protection of divine, of God. In other words, that inner peace is very much dependent upon training the spiritual side of it. That's why I'm coming to the first part of my thesis, that we are here to explore spiritual ethics. By that I mean ethics which is informed by the ma'anawiyya, the ruhaniyya, something that is connected, the spirit that is connected to the human well-being from inside. Have you seen people who reflect, who vibrate peace? There are some people, when you see them, they vibrate violence, and you want to go run away from them. You don't want even to talk to them. I don't want you to judge people like that, but I do recognize in reality there are people who scare you, and there are people who give you a lot of peace when you see them. In other words, where is that peace coming from? It's from religion. I see that also in Christians sometimes. Among all other religions I've seen like that. There are Hindus I've seen. I don't want us to think that we are the best. I want to think that we are all in the same journey. If I reach first, then it's my victory. If you reach first, it's your victory. In other words, we are all competing. فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. Allah says in the Quran, compete with one another in doing good. Not compete with one another in doing the kufr or, in blaming each other. No, don't do that. It's better to join hands in morality. Then religion is empowered. But let's move on. So the scope and objective of this 4 weeks that I'm with you, inshallah. First of all, it is to enhance ethical and spiritual content of the Quran. We want to understand the Quran in a very different way than we are used to. Most of the time, we are ritually connected with the Quran. Most of the time, I recite the Quran, you recite the Quran. Imagine how many times we do the khitmah. We do read the Quran from beginning to the end, without paying attention to what the Quran is saying. What we want to do in this class is we want to appreciate the Quran. How do we do it? Through ethical and spiritual content of the Quran. The ethical content is فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Spiritual content is when the Prophet is told, قُلْ رَبِّ اغْفِرْ وَارْحَمْ أَنْتَ خَيْرُ الرَّاحِمِينَ. You remember that ayah in Surah Mu'minun? The last ayah? The Prophet is being told, قُلْ رَبِّ اغْفِرْ. Ya Allah, forgive me. And warham, be kind to me. You are among the most kind. This is how you pray. This is the Prophet being taught. Imagine the Prophet is Insan al-Kamil. Insan al-Kamil is being told, look, you need to show humility to God. Don't be arrogant. Arrogance will kill it. Arrogance will kill your iman. So our first goal is to enhance ethical and spiritual content of the Quran. Now you understand the difference between ethical and spiritual? This is religious action guide. This is moral action guide. So we are still not dealing with Sharia directly at all. Sharia will become the value system that will have ethics and spirit in it. You remember in Salatul Janaza, when you go to bury someone, you do the Fatiha and then you say, Ya Allah, forgive him and forgive us. It's one of the dua that you do in the Qabristan. Why would you do that? Because, and then you say, Allahumma anta a'lam minni bihadha al-rajul aw bihadhi al-mar'a. You know better about this person than anybody else does. Just as you forgive this person, you also forgive me. Rabbi ighfir. You want to inculcate humility in yourself? Then istighfar is the best thing you can do. Always we do commit mistakes. And God wants to see in us humility, humbleness. Second is to learn to read the Quran for moral religious action guide. Moral religious action guide. This is the religious action that you do only for lillah. Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya lillahi rabbil alameen. All this is for God. Meg is when I do treat you well. If I don't treat you well, that means I have fallen short in my moral action guide. So moral action guide, keep in mind this distinction. Religious action guide is between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Moral action guide is between you and other human beings. The moment you enter outside your home, you have to reflect ethical spirituality. Now you are stopping at the red light. If you don't stop at the red light, there's nothing. Of course, the legal system of US will tell you, you better pay a fine because you have moved in the red light. But moral obligation is that you must always respect the life of the others. By your not stopping on the red light, you are damaging the chances for the other person to be safe from you. Because your car can hit his car if you don't stop. In other words, look at the way small things that we do. I'm in the school, I'm being given a homework. I don't do my homework. There's no legal penalty for it. There is moral penalty for it. Because I didn't do my responsibility. If I don't do my responsibility, I'm working in a bank and I'm supposed to be extremely careful in handling the cash. But I don't. And I become a victim of my own whims, my own, temptations. And I make all kinds of mistakes and then I justify them. So remember what we are learning. We are learning to read the Quran for moral religious action guide. Keep them together and you have ethical spirituality. Are you with me? Is that clear to you? I'm talking about ethical spirituality. Spirituality that is informed by morality. Religion that is informed by morality. And they can't do without each other. I'll tell you why. Third is to identify the pillars of human character formation. What is it that helps me to become good? How can I become good? It's a struggle for all of us. I am a person who gets angry without any good reason. I shout, I'm hot-tempered. How do I help myself to become calm? There must be some way of controlling this. Of course, in the modern days, they tell you, go to that class and go to that class. But the Quran says, I can teach you. Very clearly, I will tell you how to do it. If you learn to forgive, then you will also learn to be at peace. To learn to forgive. It's very easy to say, I will forgive someone. It's very easy. But it's very difficult to forgive. If somebody has done wrong to you, you really want to take a revenge. Because when I do something wrong to my friend, I have fractured our relationship. The moment I fracture my relationship, I'm hurting my ethical behavior. I'm no more the same person. See how they are. To identify the pillars of human character formation, one of the pillars of human character formation is compassion. Second pillar is forgiveness. Third pillar is gracious behavior. Fourth pillar is charity. All these are pillars. There is this hadith that I found. Ethics evolve around 3 values. Will you remember this? Al-Jamal. God loves beauty, you have to be beautiful. Inside. I don't mean to say outside. You are beautiful inside. And the one who is beautiful inside, she or he doesn't care if he's not beautiful from outside. In other words, what makes you beautiful is the Jamal that God puts in you. Second, wal khair, to do the good things. Third is the most difficult. Wal haq, truth. To follow the truth is not easy, my friends. Because it takes a lot of courage for you to say, let's say you find out the truth in front of someone, you want to hold on it, but many times you don't have the courage. It's easy to say that I recognize the truth. It's very difficult to say that I will support the truth. Would you support the truth? Not a good example. Impeachment went through. And you and I know how truth was sacrificed for the sake of politics. Where is the morality then? If this country says we are the moral teachers of the world, how come they failed so constitutionally to uphold it? Can you imagine? One of the powerful institutions of the politics in this country could not maintain truth. They knew where the truth was, and yet they voted against it. Can you imagine? You know, imagine now small things. The truth is that you cheated on your wife, and she catches you. And you are trying to protect yourself. And I'm a man, I can do anything. No, wait a minute. You're telling lies. You know you don't have such rights. In other words, what you are doing is that you are increasing the ability to create, to formate a good character. What gives you peace ultimately is your good character. Will you remember this? When during the day you have been told to do so many things, you come in the evening, we are told, by the way, by the Prophet, that take an account of your day. What did you come out with? Well, I had this agenda. I wanted to go to the library. I want to go to my job. I want to do shopping. And then at the end of the day, at night, you sit on your bed and say, did I achieve what I wanted to do today? And the answer comes, no. You didn't do it. You had time to do this, you wasted your time here. You had time to do that, and you wasted your time there. In other words, when you do, this is known as muhasaba. The more you take yourself, talk to yourself, the more you will discover the weak points. And once you discover the weak points, you will defeat them. You see what's happening? You will defeat them. Early morning, you want to rise for the salat. Let's say early in the morning, and you are unable to rise because you sleep so late and you wake up so late in the morning. What have you missed? Spirituality. So ethics and spirituality are connected. Human formation of the best possible person is to have that kind of relationship between ethics and religion. Is that clear to you? No questions? Let's move to the final. To explore practical aspects of moral character building. And I'll give you these examples. Me and Omar have been reading this for almost now 6 months. And this is, by the way, Akhlaq al-Quran. Ethics in the Quran. It's a beautiful book. It has 6 volumes like this.
What's the name of
The
the author?
author is Al-Sharbasi. He's an Egyptian scholar. Very good scholar, very humble. Sometimes you read a book, you know the author. Has it ever happened to you? Sometimes you read a book and say, oh my God, I don't like this author. And sometimes you read something so simple by that author and you say, oh wow, this was so good. In other words, books can enlighten you And our civilization, in Muslim civilization, is book civilization. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. This is the book in which there is no doubt. Now, the book becomes the centerpiece of your education. To explore practical aspects of moral character building, what we did, me and Omar did quite a few times, we went through character formation. One of the things that we learned in character formation was al-af, forgiveness. One of the very powerful things. You need to learn to forgive. If you don't learn to forgive, you'll never be at peace. I bet you. Because the moment you forgive, you are at peace. Even if the other person was the one who was wrong, but you forgive. It's very hard, huh? It's easy to say. When you know somebody is not treating you well, it's very hard to say, I forgive you. Because you know the person is not. But, that's what, the Quran says. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَالْأَسْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. وَتَوَاصَوْا. They deal with each other with patience. They tell each other the truth. This is what makes you a strong character, strong personality. So al-af, for example, when you read about al-af in the Quran, it is something in which you learn to plead. You learn to ask your friend, please forgive me. Maybe I was wrong. And what it does immediately, it changes your attitude. It builds confidence in you. That no, I can deal with human beings who are not easy to deal with. Sometimes a friend is so nasty in the behavior, but you keep up with it because after all, there are some good qualities also. Like Imam Ghazali says, look at the good qualities and be a friend to him. And all these things, when you put together, you have a key to explore practical aspects of moral character building. Any question on this slide? So the scope of our study is to discover spiritual ethics. Is that clear now when I talk about spiritual ethics? What does it mean? It means you want to be religious, but also you want to be moral. You want to be religious in the sense that you belong to God and God belongs to you. But you also look at other human beings with compassion, with kindness, with forgiveness. That's spiritual ethics. Most of the time we would talk about, there are courses in university about ethics, by the way, but they talk about ethics in the way human reason is capable of judging. And I will come to that, by the way. I'll come to epistemology, I'll come to the knowledge of how do I know that this is right and this is wrong? How do I know that this is from God and this is from Shaitan? What is it in me that I'm able to know that? And sometimes in animal kingdom, they say elephants are very smart, very clever. They know human friends. Dogs know good human friends. But there are other animals who don't know. We find that usually our cat is the most selfish animal that we know. And we still love her. We still like her. And she also returns our love. If you have noticed, because we have had, a pet for a long, long time, so I know what they look like. And in other words, in the animal kingdom also, the rules are very simple, but they are thought-provoking. Have you seen the way the bird feels the child, the small chick? Have you seen them? Have you noticed them? Have you noticed the, butterfly, the way it... In other words, the entire nature is full of science for us to know what we call how to explore practical aspects of moral character building. Ashab al-Kahf, you remember in the Quran Ashab al-Kahf and the dog they had? And the story is there, and the Quran is saying that you better learn this story. History in the Quran is for the sake of our learning and becoming strong in our character. You will find that history does not sit in condemnation. More it is saying, didn't you know what Moses did? Didn't you know what Noah did? Idha. Have you seen idha? And idha means, you remember that? Ara'ayta alladhi? Did you not see that? That they were lying and they were doing this? In other words, what the Quran is trying to teach us is how to explore practical aspects of the stories that you read. They were discussing in the science, they were discussing, when does a child know ethics? What is your answer? When do you think a baby knows what is right from what is wrong? Does anyone know? What do you think? When does the baby know? You have a young sister, small sister, born, just 40 days ago, 2 months ago. What do you say? When do they know what is right, what is wrong? They did research in the University of Pennsylvania. They found that in the second month, the child knows what is good from what is bad. If the mother is angry, the child is refusing to take the feed. The child knows my mom is angry today. My mom is not the same mom. She is not willing to take me, to hold me as tight she always does. See how these things work in the nature. From second month, the child knows. Now your young child, your 6 months, 7 toddler at home, brings a flower to you and you say, wow, Bawa, that's very good. The moment you show approval, the child knows this is something good that I have done. Or the moment you say disapproval, the child knows. In other words, from the very early days, St. Augustine was asked the whole same question. He said, it takes 12 years for the child to know what is right from what is wrong. I don't think I will talk about the Prophet's education system, and he says 7-7-7. And he divides the training of the child by 7, 7, and 7, and I'll talk about it later on. If I forget it, you will remind me so that I can talk about it. But I've done a lot of research on children's education. When does it start? When should it start? What should we be teaching to the student? Should we have our Sunday schools that teaches only to remember things, only to memorize things? How should we do that? Because these children are very smart. They go to the other schools, secular schools, they come out with lots of questions, but they go to religious schools on Sunday, they went there because mom and dad wanted them to go. Otherwise, they don't want to go. In other words, what the Quran is teaching us is, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَفَكَّرُونَ. If only you would think. لَعَلَّكُمْ يَتَدَبَّرُونَ. If only you will ponder, then you will discover. Now I have So let us understand the Quranic terminology. The ayah that we read, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Surah Al-Isra. It's one of the very beautiful surahs of the Quran. وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ means Quran is saying that we haven't given you everything together. We are going to give you slowly in a process so that you can digest it, so that you can learn it. And therefore the Prophet used to say, teach your children 5 ayat at one time, 5 verses, so that they learn to think about it. They learn to read it with thoughtful mind. So if the children, if you push them, they might read the whole Sifara, the whole juz, in half an hour or 45 minutes. But that's not what the Prophet wanted. The Prophet said, engage the Quran in your life. All right? So the Quran is teaching us khuluq and khulq. إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. The Prophet is being described. That you are the best moral example. You are the good exemplar. The Prophet is being described. Ibn Abbas said, here khulq means deen. إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى دِينِ الْعَظِيمِ. You are on the, one of the great religions. And it's true. If we look at Islam without any prejudice, without any, self-glorification, you will know very immediately you will know that the Quran is teaching us something very important about itself. One of the most important principles is humility. Not to be arrogant about anything that we know. So, khulq is natural disposition. You know what is disposition? Something you are inclined to do. Naturally, human beings, Christianity says you are naturally born with original sin. You have to get rid of the original sin by accepting Jesus as your Savior. That's how it teaches. Very strict doctrine in Christian tradition. What Islam is saying that no, you've been born with natural disposition, khulq, also known as fitra. You've been born with that. What does it do? It is infused nature. By nature, you remember you mentioned atheists. By nature, all human beings are responsible for their nature. Nobody can say on the day of judgment, I didn't know what was morality. They can say, I didn't know the prophet, I didn't know the holy book. But they can't say that I didn't know what was right from wrong, because it is there. It is instilled in them. Therefore we say, even an atheist on the day of judgment will be asked, well, you didn't want to believe in me, God will say, but how about knowing your own nature? You are already empowered in your own nature to know the right from the wrong. How come you did not follow that nature? You see, I'm coming to a very large philosophical question. Are we responsible for the nature with which we have been created? Yes, of course we are. Even if we say, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in Quran, I don't believe in anything, one thing that you have to believe is that I'm a human being. I'm a human person. As a human person, you have your nature to deal with. Well-formed spiritual condition. Look at the way I'm choosing my terms here. Well-formed spiritual condition which habitually leads to good behavior. It is very easy habitually to do bad. Imam Ghazali says, it's very easy to do bad. You don't have to prompt yourself to do bad. You want to fight? It's very easy to fight. To make peace is difficult. It requires a lot of courage on your part. So, leads to good behavior. Habitually, you become accustomed to do good. When you treat your child to tell the truth, when you teach yourself to be humble, you are naturally doing it. Because anybody who doesn't do it naturally does not benefit from it. Do you see what's happening? You have to do it naturally, not to show people what you are, but you are convinced inside. And it will show without your demonstrating it, people will notice that this person has a light on her face or on his face. And that's what they show. There are two conditions, good and bad, that appear in human personality. Two conditions. Good and bad, they both are working together to challenge you. You want to give, you have money in your pocket, you find a poor person asking you, and your hand goes inside and says, well, I need it. I won't give it. Whereas your heart is saying, well, you need only 10. You have 20. Why don't you give 10? In other words, there are two voices that you hear. This is known as zamzama. Zamzama is, hearing the voice. It could be zamzama rabbani, it could be zamzama shaitani. It could be rabbani and it could be shaitani. If shaitan tells you, you don't have to. You need it for a movie you want to see, and you will need, popcorn and a drink. The other side of you says, give it, come on. Don't be so miser. In other words, two forces are constantly appear in your personality. It is also regarded as an inner face of human person. You will know a person immediately. The moment they shake hands with you, the moment they greet you, the moment they talk to you, God has given this ability in us to know the right from the wrong. You really know it. I don't mean to say that I'm trying to judge anybody, but I know in my heart I say, I better keep away from this person, or I better be close to this person, because this person is really good and is teaching me good things. In other words, your decisions about friendships are very much controlled by your inner self. Your inner self tells you, now I can open my heart to my friend. Your inner voice tells you, no, I will not talk anything about myself, because otherwise he or she will tell others about it. See how it works. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that the inner face of a human person is the personality that recognizes the good and recognizes the bad, and chooses one over the other. I say chooses one. God has not forced it. The merit that you and I have is that we have a thinking power. We have the ability to know the right from the wrong. And we have the ability to reject the good or to reject the evil. It's up to us. Because Yawmul Qiyamah, the day of judgment, all responsibility towards the end, is very much based on this understanding. That I am responsible for what I do. And I'll be called to account for it. Finally, the Quran uses short and precise terms to indicate signs and roadmarks for the believers. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ. When God's help will come, you will be victorious. You will win. Now, it is talking about a special event in the history of Islam, but it has a general tone is, إِذَا جَاءَ. This is, when the help from God comes, you will be successful. It happens even now. Even now when you are worried about something and the help comes and you get there. In other words, there is already in you the ability to respond to God's, what we call, stimulations. The faith is like stimulation. And you are learning to do things that you never knew before. Many a times my students tell me that I don't pray because I can't concentrate. I said, you're already defeated before the game started. You should train yourself to concentrate. It doesn't come automatically. Hey, you know how interesting it is, how shaitan works on us. The moment you say Allahu Akbar and your mind wanders. Nothing remembers, you don't remember anything else, but at that point, when you say Allahu Akbar, your mind is wandering. And you ask yourself, what's happening? Am I in first rakah or second rakah? Am I in the third or what? In other words, you are constantly forgetting it. The Quran uses short and precise terms to indicate signs, alayam, ayat, and road marks for the believers. One more slide and I should be done. Did I go on? Okay. So let's understand now finally. This is my last slide before I stop, for you to ask questions if you have and have discussion. The good character. The Quran says, خُذِ الْعَفْوَ وَأَمُرْ بِالْعُرْفِ وَأَعْرِضْ عَنِ الْجَاهِلِينَ. Choose for yourself. خُذِ الْعَفْوَ. Choose for yourself. Take yourself in the hands your forgiveness. Your ability to forgive. As I think one of the things that we are learning tonight is forgiveness is the key to the healing. You want to heal, you want to get your anger control, forgiveness is the key. And أعرض وأمر بالعرف. Tell people to do which is customary. Customarily, people are generous with one another. Customarily, they do things for one another. Do them, tell them. And tell them to oppose what? Ignorance and ignorant people. You can't win with ignorant people. No, there is no way. You have to choose ultimately your own strategy, that once they begin to ask you these, silly questions, you're going to keep quiet. You will not answer it. That's one of the things that you do. Now, the Prophet said, بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ أَكْمَلَ النَّاسِ إِيمَانًا أَحْسَنُهُمْ خُلْقًا. The most perfect iman is the one that is informed by good character. See how it is connected? How active is this religion in a way? What the Prophet is saying, that I was sent to accomplish, to perfect the good characters. Makarimul akhlaq, good virtues. Akmal al-nas imanan ahsanuhum khulqa. The best human being is the one who is the best in his moral behavior. Adab. You need that. We need that all. By the way, in our American culture, we are very loud. Have you noticed it? We're extremely loud. I find when my sons, I said, can you calm down? You don't have to be that loud, because the culture is loud. They're blasting things at you. You go anywhere, and so much blasting is done that you get almost, mesmerized by the blasting. And you tell yourself, no, I'm not going to be influenced by this. Better wear earplugs. Because that's the only way you can control these things. Otherwise, they become part of your psyche. That's what the Quran is trying to. The Prophet is saying, Akmal al-Nasi, the best of the people, the most perfect of the people in Iman are those who have best character. Imam Ali says, Si'atul akhlaq kimya, l-arzaq ittaqul ra'isul akhlaq. Si'atul akhlaq kimya al-arzaq. You know how many times I hear my friends telling me, I'm not earning enough. I'm not earning enough. I'm always at the end of the month, I don't have money. Here, Ali ibn Abi Talib is saying that you want to increase your well-being? Your well-being and akhlaq will actually increase your rizq from Allah. Allah will give you more rizq. Can you imagine? It is teaching us how to be conscious of our behavior so that we can then be able to perform our acts properly. Finally, at-tuqa ra'isul akhlaq. At-tuqa is a very, very difficult stage, but that's the word that I'm using for spiritual ethics. Taqwa. Taqwa is spiritual ethics. Taqwa has been translated as fear of God, but I don't think that's a good translation. Taqwa is actually being aware of the divine presence. Even if nobody is there with you, Allah is there. God is there with you. And you can't ignore that. The moment you ignore it, shaitan takes you over. Tries to control you. Says, no, this is how it is. In other words, ittaqu in the Quran is always referring to the spiritual ethics. Now we find the term that we are trying to develop in these lectures. So the most important contribution that you will be making is try to remember what we talked about in tonight's lecture and take short notes for yourself, maybe a page. So that when we come after a week, things are fresh in your mind and I don't have to go again through the first lecture in order for us to move on. Does it make sense to you? Yes? At-tuqa is spiritual and moral awareness. At-tuqa, taqwa. Ittaqu al-mu'min. Ittaqu farasat al-mu'min. And mu'min is able to see things because he has spiritual and ethical perfection. Sometimes you are surprised that you are able to predict things so easily. Somebody is leaving home and you say, my God, it's not a good time for this person to leave. Why don't you stop him? So you try to stop the person goes away, and then you hear the bad thing that has happened, accident has happened, something, God knows. What I want to talk about is, what I want to generate in you and myself is the confidence that Islam generates in us because of the Iman and Taqwa. Iman and Taqwa. When the Quran is introducing itself, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. In this book there is guidance for whom? For the one who is spiritually and ethically aware. Spiritually and morally aware. I want to stop here and allow you to ask questions and to let's discuss it. Don't accept whatever I say. You don't have to do that. I'm like you, a student. So I've just finished a book about this. So I'm more prepared for it, but you are as smart as I am. In other words, you know better sometimes through your practical wisdom that God has endowed in all of us. There's practical wisdom in all of us. So please, if you have questions, go ahead and ask them. Yes.
I wanted to go back to a question that the brother asked earlier.
Be loud because I have hearing it, but I don't know, sometimes it doesn't work.
Okay, I'll try to speak louder. I wanted to go back to a question that the brother asked earlier about
Yes.
like the variances in like people, like they're endowed with different levels of empathy or different ability to know right from wrong. And how does, when you think about like what's happening today and the idea that like truth or like disinformation has become rampant and like people literally don't know the difference between like is this correct or is this not correct, and that a society that's otherwise not ignorant. So there's education and there's all of this other thing, but they're not able to use senses anymore. They're dulled in different ways, or they're just we're in a world where like there's so many different
opinions.
So
and
in that context, how does one navigate this idea of like clarity of right and wrong? And do you have any advice or thoughts about like how we talk about this to our children and how do we engage with other people?
Yeah. One of the things that you want to do, and you want to be aware of it all the time, is that truth must be clarified and accepted in our search for the truth. Sometimes we know the truth, we don't accept it. But sometimes we know it and we accept it. What happens is that there is a process going on in our mind. As the Quran would say, فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ مَرَضٌ فَزَادَهُمُ اللَّهُ مَرَضًا. In their hearts, in their minds, there is some disease. And God increases the disease, that disease. In other words, what God doesn't want us to do is to give up. لَيْسَ لِلْإِنسَانِ إِلَّا مَا سَعَى. There's no other way for human beings but to constantly work. Be aware of the forces that are going to take you away from your path, from your right path. So the problem is that we are always faced with making a choice. How do we know that what we have chosen is the right answer for what we are looking for? And I think that's what you are trying to know, right? Trying to understand what are the key elements that we could recognize in order for us to understand that this is where the truth ought to lie. This is where the truth ought to be. Is this what I did? Did I understand you right?
Yeah, I think that's helpful. Just the direction of a constant like inner working of like engaging with it, like that being a way to address it. I think I'm thinking of a couple of things, but like when you think of like half of America that thinks Trump is a positive force, and like how do you reconcile that with it's not like half of America is bad, or they have a poor or a worse moral basis or fitra, and many of them have feel very strongly and very clear that what he is leading is a positive way forward. So how do you reconcile sort of those?
Reconciling, yeah. It's not easy to reconcile when you see injustice like that, so obvious. So obvious. I think The obvious element is that if you are a little educated, you would know that things have gone wrong, they shouldn't have gone this way. And here you are left in a limbo. What should I think? My neighbors, my fellow class, mates, they don't even think about it. Here I am burning inside. I'm so disappointed inside. I don't think there's any solution to the agony that we feel when we go into that situation. But there's something that the Quran taught the Prophet, فَاصْبِرْ لِحُكْمِ رَبِّكَ. Be patient with your God's judgment, your Lord's judgment. And I think that the dua that Nabi Musa is making, رَبِّ اشْرَحْ لِي صَدْرِي وَيَسِّرْ لِي أَمْرِي, is dua for all of us, by the way. Ya Allah, make things easier for me. Open them so that I understand them. And many times our analysis is short. Our analysis is not deep, not always. And therefore I think we need to be patient until we come to the final conclusion. And the final conclusion is what the Prophet was asked to do was, Rabbi zidni ilman, increase my knowledge with certainty. And I think that's what we need to be aware of. I'm positive that many people knew what was happening in the country. But you need the confidence of Iman to speak up. When I looked at the people who are making such a decision, it told me quite clearly that they have no such faith, neither in God, neither in themselves. Because their position is depending upon, somebody's approval. How can you be like that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَكُونُوا مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ. Be aware of God's, spiritual and moral awareness, and be with those who are truthful. كُونُوا مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ. This is Amr in Arabic. Be with those who are truthful. What if I'm not with the truthful people? I'm always sitting with those who don't care for the truth. Then I also lose that light of truth. This is what happens. Because a person is known by the company he or she keeps. If the company is not the right company, then you will be defeated very easily. But if you have the right company, you have somebody who thinks like you, who wants to analyze, wants to understand like you, then you will discover it. I have seen it hundreds of times, There are so many examples I could cite that you go into society. Sometimes I go for consultation in State Department, in Defense Department. I still remember when the Iraq war was coming up, 2003, and I was one of the team members who were consulted about it. My opinion was different than all other opinions. So I was sidestepped, because my opinion was that no, this invasion will not do anything but will increase the suffering of the people. But that was not the opinion held by many religious people who were sitting there. There were some Sunni scholars, Shia scholars, secularists, all of them were sitting. And I was also there, invited by my friend who works for the State Department, that no, we need you. I said, nobody will listen to me. And it was true, nobody listened to me, It was very funny that Mr. Wolfowitz started the meeting with Fatiha. Yeah, I have never seen that in Fatiha being read in the State Department. And not only that, they told us Muslims that you could go and pray. So, in other words, we respect you, but we want you to think like we do. And this is a big call, by the way. It's not easy to accept that kind of, accommodation. Therefore, I don't go anymore. Once I got a call from State Department, we want you to come and speak about Messianism. I said, who else is coming? He said, you are the only one because you know it. I said, no, I'm sorry, I'm not coming. So, in other words, and they pay you $500 per hour for consultation. It's so easy to fall in the trap. But how many times are we protected? Not always, unless we become, aware of our own weaknesses, I remember getting a note from CIA, why don't you come and talk about Islamic fundamentalism? And we pay you under the table, nobody would know that we're paid. I said, no, my conscience will know. I'm not coming. I'll never come because I don't agree with what you do. I was very blunt. So I don't agree with what you do. In other words, how many people can resist that? There are so many Muslims who go to the State Department. They beat the same drum as the policymakers do. But here you need what we call inner strength to say, no, I will not be used by you. I'm not going to endorse what you are doing. And it's not always possible. Sometimes you are tempted. Okay. Because I remember all the time what the Prophet used to say to the Sahaba, used to say to them, just your presence in their midst is enough to frighten them because you are muttaq. The Prophet used to say. Because there was some who said, Ya Rasulullah, we don't want to go. Said, no, you should go and you should live among them. Your presence will frighten them. So many times I fall into the trap saying, well, if I don't go, then so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so will go, and there will be nobody to defend the position. But I find alone, my voice is, it doesn't carry the weight because they have been invited, or others have been invited to say 2 + 2 is 4. And I say, no, 2 + 2 is not 4 in this case because there is no 2. There's more. In other words, you dissent from them. Your dissent voice is not heard. This is why we need ethical spirituality. Do you understand why am I taking on the tough journey? It's a difficult journey, but we'll be traveling together. Inshallah, we'll do much better. Yes.
So you mentioned early on when you discussed the LAG, the Legal Action Guide, how do you balance Sharia with other civil, secular law? Like, is it relative? Because, like, for example, we live in America and we can't say, oh, we're going to implement Sharia law because we're a minority in a country that is something else.
Yeah, I think we are living in Darul Sulh. There is Darul Harb, there is Darul Islam, there is Darul Sulh. Our religious scholars used to divide the world into 3 different spaces. Darul Islam, where Muslims were in majority and were in a dominant position. Darul Harb, when it was the enemy. Darul Sulh is when you are able to practice your religion without being molested. Nobody bothers you here. I find that sometimes it's easier to be a Muslim here than in some of the Muslim countries where you go, They really try to control you. So America is quite tolerant and freedom of religion is recognized by the Constitution. So even if you are, even if for a short while, it's a drawback, when you're not able to say things, when you're not able to practice what you want, and you seem to be making compromise, I think Allahu a'lamu bizati sudur. Allah knows that you are going through what you are going through is not manageable without doing that. And many times, I think in the story of Ammar Yasir, the Quran is telling us that Ammar Yasir was being tortured. And he was being told that you are the one who is saying Al-Ahad, Al-Ahad. You are the one who says all these gods are wrong. He said, and then he had to save himself. He said, no, I'm not the one. I'm not the one. Now the Quran defends it. It says sometimes, like Ammar did, you have to protect yourself for the future, because otherwise you will be killed. And the kuffar would have killed him, like they wanted to kill Sumayya, his mother, and they would have killed Ammar. But the Prophet then told Ammar that he felt ashamed. He went to the Prophet and said, this is what I have done. He said, I know, I've received the ayah for you. that when you are forced to do that sometimes, you have to do it to save your life for the better future. There are so many instances that we can quote, Does it make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Okay, are we done? You want to sit for another hour? Umar knows I teach for 2.5 hours class, so I'm not afraid of teaching for 2. But I'm afraid you will be tired, because psychologically we are told the audience has concentration for 45 minutes. After that, the lecture is skipping. So I know it. Anyways, thank you very much for being here, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Real quick, sorry. My name is Omar, for those of you who came late. I hope everyone registered. If you haven't registered, please do, because that's how we're going to send you all the updates. We have Professor Sachedina for 3 more weeks at least, and then we're going to see about doing other classes. For those of us, anyone who wants to pray Isha, we're going to be praying in this other room. If you can help me as you're leaving, if you can pick up your chairs and stack them in the back, that would be super helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. And Professor Sachedina is here. So.
Omar, will you be sending out and recording like you did
Yes.
for the last lecture?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
خوشحال شدم.
Thank you so much.
بله بله. خیلی فکر خوبی داری. خداوند شما رو حفظ کنه.
شما را هم